There is no hiding it, there is a RAM shortage, but people are getting distracted because it's not only RAM, it's everything PC related. And when I say everything, I mean freaking everything. SSD prices are, well, you can see for yourself, they are following the RAM trend. And GPUs, I don't even want to talk about it, just because I know how bad it can get. It can get even worse than RAM. But why is this happening? I am here to tell you. Once upon a time, we, the customers, were at the top. If we didn't pay for a product, it failed, or companies lowered the prices so the product doesn't fail, because the only thing that big tech companies care about is money, and we had all the money, and now we don't have that power. We don't have it. I mean, we have money. With today's economy, we have little money, but we still have it. And then there are the companies that actually have the money, way more than us combined, and those are the big AI companies, and we are in a bidding war against them because we want the same stuff, electronics. And let's say for now we are losing. We know that AI is the main factor for these price increases, or at least it's the main complaint that big tech companies like to use. But how is it happening? How high will these prices get? And will it ever end? Or better said, when will it end? And we are going to answer everything, but first we need to understand what's going on. So RAM, it is bad, and let's be real, it will get even worse before it gets better. Everything that has been happening seems to indicate this. So like I said before, in the good old days, RAM prices needed to match the consumer's budget, and the consumer had choices, believe it or not. So the companies were competing against each other, and when companies compete, there's innovation and things are cheaper. Okay, these companies fixed prices from time to time, but generally speaking, prices were good until the demand rose, and they don't seem to want to produce more RAM, they just want to raise the prices, and there's logic to that as well. Let me explain. All the demand that is happening right now is because of AI, and you probably have heard this saying, when the AI bubble pops. That means that AI is just a trend and it will not be as mainstream in the future. So there's a high probability that people will not invest as much in AI in the future. If there's no investment, there's no need for RAM. That's the logic basically. If companies started to produce more, well, first it would take a couple of years just to get everything in order to produce more. And then what if the AI bubble pops in 2 years? And the reason why you build the factories is to sell to AI companies. Well, you can sell to consumers, but it would be you competing with everyone else, and you would have more RAM than the buyers need. So the prices would plummet to the point where you might even sell at a loss. Let's be honest, they will not lose money, but you get the idea. They don't want to risk it, and on top of that you will be left with factories that you don't need. It's a risky tactic to just increase production, so they will not do that. They might increase it by a little bit, but not to the point to satisfy the demand that AI has created. So what is the solution to this? Even more competition, which will lead to more innovation, which will lead to better prices, to better everything. And this competition might be closer than you might think. In a recent video GamerSnacks has made, he talks about these Chinese competitors which have been trying to get in the market for years, and now they might just make it. More on competition later on the video, because this kind of competition has its dark side also. But not having competition sometimes leads to price fixing, which they might be already doing. But for right now, let's say that they are not fixing prices. At the end of the day, companies are greedy, and you can always bet that they will do what's best in their interest. So prices of everything that is in demand is increasing, even storage. In a previous video of mine, I ranked shortages, and I didn't rank this storage shortage higher on the list because it wasn't that bad before. And when I say before, I mean a few months before. But right now, even SSDs are getting ridiculous, and they will most likely get even worse before they get better, which is a trend, I guess. And the reason remains the same: AI. If you need RAM and storage to make good AI, it makes sense that the bigger the RAM shortage gets, the bigger the SSD shortage will get as well. That depends on how much SSDs you need in relation to RAM, but you get the idea. SSDs will get worse as long as RAM gets worse, and they don't seem like they are increasing production for storages either. And then again, if they don't, China will, like a wise man once said.
God created the world, but everything else was made in China.
By the way, when I say these things about China, some of you might think that I am being positive about China, and believe me, I am not. I don't like China, but that's besides the point. For a second, don't think about computers. Think of anything else that is easy to produce, but at the same time doesn't take someone their whole life to design that thing. Usually it is practical and just works, and if it can be made for cheap, China will most likely do it. And computer components, the only thing that is keeping Chinese people away from doing the same thing with them is because they are really complicated to produce, and they have a lot of parts which you can't do as easily as if you just had some plastic moving around. And I think the country itself intentionally doesn't stop these crimes, because how come that everywhere else in the rest of the world we don't have this problem, only China we do, and only in China we have subpar products. And even the tech companies that are upcoming in China that are respectable and maybe have quality parts, they have been involved in quite a few scandals. Not to say that the companies that we have are any better when it comes to scandals, but at least they follow some rules and we know that they have standards. Where I want to get at is that, is it really just AI? I am sure that AI plays a major role when it comes to product spot, but DDR4 RAM and DDR5 RAM both are at a shortage now, and even storage. This just can't be right. I am sure that the problem lies elsewhere, and it has to do with everything from price fixing to maybe even reducing production to just increase prices. I wouldn't put this option above these companies, but for now we don't have any proof of that happening, and it seems like we will not have any proof of that happening anytime in the near future, because history repeats itself. This is not the first time something like this has happened. You can go and watch GamerSnacks' video on this, but it hasn't happened to this scale, and at that time the actual US government got in between and stopped this price fixing and even fined these companies. But now it looks like the US government is part of it, and I will say we don't know for sure, nor do I think anyone knows for sure that this is happening, but it sure looks like it. Since you need storage and RAM for literally everything that has to do with tech, this would be enough to finish the video and say with 100% certainty that we are in a downward spiral. But at the same time, this doesn't mean that the tech recession is happening or will happen. So did I just clickbait with the title? No, it is definitely a recession, even though people are spending quite a lot of money on computers. Now, the best place you can see the problem is if you go back like 7 to 9 years before. If you bought a computer for, let's say, $2,000, chances were that in the next 2 to 3 years you could build a PC with similar performance with $1,500, and in the next 2 to 3 years you could have that performance with $1,000. And if you think that I am wrong, just think about it. If you bought a 1080 when it launched, it would have been expensive, but after a couple of years you could go with the RTX 2070 and maybe you could have gotten that for cheaper. And after another 2 years the RTX 3060 came out. Every single GPU was cheaper than the previous GPU and even better in every sense, and the same could be said for the CPU. Once the new generation came out, the last generation went down in price, or you could just get the newer budget CPU. But enough of that, let's go back to the RTX 30 series economy. If you bought a GPU, let's say the RTX 3080, after 2 years, if you went for the RTX 4070 first, you wouldn't be able to buy it for MSRP because prices were crazy, so you would have spent more money on it. But let's say that you spend around the same amount of money on them, they would still perform mostly the same for the same price. So your money, if you waited, didn't gain any value. And in tech, when it comes to computers, that just doesn't happen. And even when you think about the RTX 50 series, they are better in terms of performance, I am not complaining about that, but when it comes to prices, they are expensive, and compared to the previous generation, they are just not worth it. Unless you are going for the RTX 5090, you could have gotten the same amount of performance with the same amount of money 2 years ago. And when it comes to computers, that is just wrong. Let's say that you didn't buy the RTX 4070 because you waited for the RTX 50 series to come out, so you could have more money when it comes to computer parts, because when the new generation comes out, the previous generation gets cheaper, but the newer generation is also more powerful. So if you didn't buy the RTX 4070 and you waited for the RTX 5060 to come out for the purpose of being cheap, that GPU just doesn't perform well. Even though it is cheap, it's not worth it. So basically, if you bought a really good computer 4 years ago, chances are that that computer would be worth about the same today. And I can say that for certain because I bought a computer more than 2 years ago and it has the same value more or less if I wanted to sell it. So when it comes to people, we are in a tech recession. Even though technically tech is evolving and it's making more money, it is not on a recession, but as far as individual consumers go, tech has stopped, unless you pay like crazy for high-end parts. Don't forget, it's not just RAM and storage, there are many more PC components that are raising the prices of computers, so let's get into that. There's a pretty good chance GPU prices will increase again, because don't forget, GPUs are already expensive, so people don't upgrade GPUs as often, and Nvidia had to become innovative with ideas because they want to make more money. They, and I shit you not, had to decrease the production. Credit to them, at least they are admitting it, so that's good, I guess. And then when it comes to other PC parts like the monitor, keyboard and even the case, well, they are not complicated to produce, so China will continue to make them for cheap, and even that depends on how much your country decides to put taxes on China. Basically everything is expensive and I doubt anything is actually in shortage. But most importantly, what is the solution to this? More competition, and more competition might just happen. To prove that, think about phones. I remember a time when Samsung and Apple were just making high-end phones, the best of the best. And if you wanted a cheaper phone, you either got a used phone or the phone that came out last year. There were some exceptions, but more or less that was the case. But then China came along and, believe it or not, changed the whole system. They started making cheaper, more affordable phones, and they were a hit. And it wasn't just China, but you get the idea. Like, think about Xiaomi. The thing that they were known for the most were their cheap phones, and to their credit, their phones are really good. For the price at least. And even Samsung had to adapt to that strategy. That's why for the last years they started making budget phones with the A series, and they were really successful with that as well. I am sure that if it was not for the competition, they wouldn't do that. They wouldn't make budget phones. And even if you don't think about gaming computers, think about games. For the longest time, China didn't have a major publisher, but our big companies put shitty game after shitty game, and we got tired of that. And then China seized the moment and they made pretty good games, and those games were successful. Basically games that came out from publishers that we never heard about, they were a success after success. And the companies that we are used to that already have big franchises just couldn't keep up, and still don't. And even those companies now are being bought by Chinese companies just for their IPs. With that in mind, my point is that the same can happen, will happen, or better said, is happening right now. These products, RAM, CPUs, GPUs, storage, they are hard to manufacture, but once you get the hang of it, once you have the factories up and going, then you just don't stop. And the companies that we are used to buying from are giving not just China, but any other country an opening to get in the middle of that. And I am not saying this like it is a bad thing. I am all for more competition, but at the same time I want fair competition, and hopefully we will get that in the future, because only through that we will have better products, better prices, and things will get better a lot faster, hopefully. The other thing I want to touch is workers getting laid off. Now, I'm not saying to keep useless workers around, like Twitter had a lot of workers, and then when Elon took over, fired a bunch of them, we didn't notice a difference. But at the same time, we have companies innovating, and if you want innovation, you need people, and these companies are just firing. No one is hiring, at least it looks like it. And I don't blame the companies. You have Xiaomi and Samsung. Samsung has a lot more workers than Xiaomi, like a lot more, and Xiaomi has a lot of products as well, and they managed to compete with Samsung. Now, I know Samsung does more things, it makes more products than Xiaomi, but at the same time Xiaomi makes a lot of things as well. With a number of workers in mind, I don't know how they manage, and I feel like these companies are trying to be more like Xiaomi and just optimizing the shit out of everything, and when that happens, there's less space for innovation, and that leads to everything just being stale. Like products getting 5% better each year, and that's all, and that's just not fun or interesting, and I consider that a recession, even though by definition it's not, and that's a wrap. Now, there are a lot of other things I could talk about, but I feel like I touched all of the major points. What do you guys think? Are we in a tech recession? Will it happen in the future? Or will this situation get sorted out quickly and we are just making a big fuss about this? Comment down below and see you in the next one. Don't forget to like. Bye.